My name is Elizabeth Rose Quinn. Please join me this week on One Final Twist.
This week, I'm joined by Elizabeth Rose Quinn, author of Follow Me, and her new book, Payback, comes out May the 5th from Thomas and Mercer. Welcome, Miss Quinn. Tell us a little bit about your book.
Well, firstly, thank you so much for having me. I'm thrilled to be here. My book, Payback, in some ways is kind of my love letter to that locked room, limited suspect mystery genre, but trying to find kind of a new version of it. And I love to kind of ask big social questions when I'm writing. And this one was about like, what is criminal justice? What does it do? Does it work? Spoiler alert, no. And but then to kind of put it in a really popcorn fun packaging of what if the locked room was literal? Because
Exactly.
it's a jail cell.
I did find this book was very fun to read. We'll get a little deep into it. We're not going to do too much because I don't want to do spoilers. Well, I may ask you some stuff off camera so we don't spoil it for the readers. But you've got a. If we look at Follow Me, which was a filmed or not filmed, but written on a ranch, and there's it's wide open spaces, sort of, and then we go to the confined space, nearly locked room.
Mhm.
How was that a challenge to you to go from one type of setting to the other?
I will tell you that about halfway through this book, I thought, whose dumb idea was this to do a locked room mystery? This is such a pain. What moron said I should write this? And then I realized it was me. And I was like, well, crap. Um, It was difficult. I felt like I almost had to build a clue board in my mind where I moved the pieces around because I had to make sure that who did what, when, and where would make sense. You can't have everybody in the same room at the same time. You got to make sure people are exiting or entering or looking in the wrong direction. And so it was very detail oriented in that way. That was something that I kind of had to make sure each time I did a rewrite pass was like, okay, this is the time you have to make sure everybody exits in the right order. Because if you say that one person was left behind, but you write it as if they were the first one out the door, like that's not gonna cut the mustard. So that was tricky. It was a different kind of math than Follow Me was, because that was so centrally one person and
Yeah.
hundreds of suspects. And so it felt like, oh, look, I want to show my publisher this pony has two tricks. And I thought, oh no, this second trick was really a bad choice by me.
You sound kind of like Maureen with her whiteboard. Was it
Yes.
Maureen that had the whiteboard? It's been a minute. Was it Maureen that had the whiteboard and was making notes on the whiteboard?
Yeah, it's Maureen and Dee Dee who are in there, and they're like,
Yeah.
we can do it, we can track it, we can get everything down. And I thought, oh no, I need a whiteboard.
You've created you created quite a villain with Bard. He's very maniacal. Don't want to give too much away about him, but he was a bad guy. I mean, he really was. So
Yeah.
when you choose your villains or your bad guys, what goes into your thought process of creating your bad guy or
I
bad
mean, I
girl?
think, yeah, I think there's two different things, right? Like, I want them, if they told the story from their perspective, they're the hero.
Hmm.
Even if they know, Bard is definitely a bad guy and knows that he's a bad guy, but he also feels very kind of justified and secure in what he wants to do.
Yeah,
Um, and I think that's important to me to have it feel like whatever their worldview is, it's very cohesive.
yeah,
Um, and then secondarily, I want them to also kind of be grounded and be real people. I don't want to get into that place where you've got like the super genius villain who's always like 28 steps ahead. I
mhm,
think that can almost start to feel like a Deus ex machina to the reader if they're like, this doesn't feel real anymore. How would they know that this was going to happen? Like, I don't. So to me, those are the two things I find is what's their worldview? What are they trying to achieve that makes
yeah,
sense to them, that
yeah.
explains their actions? And then how do I also make sure that it's not something that takes the reader out of it, that they would almost kind of recognize these traits in bad people they know. But yeah,
Yeah.
Bard's a real crumb. He's not
Yes,
a
he
good
is.
guy.
And is pay to stay a real thing?
Oh yes.
Is it really?
Oh
See, and
yes.
here I'm not that familiar with it. Obviously I've not been in prison, so um, in Tennessee they allow people to serve on if they have like minor type stuff. They let them do weekends and nights,
Hmm.
so they don't lose, I guess, their job or their ability to pay their fines or whatnot
Hmm.
for some like DUI type stuff in Tennessee. I didn't know that was a real thing. Is it? That just kind of blows my mind. I was reading up on Follow Me. We'll talk a little bit about that. Is there any news on the movie for Follow Me?
Adele Lim, who's adapting, the script is into the studio, and we're kind of just at that last moment of waiting for them to say, okay, we're ready.
We're
So
ready. Okay.
we're all at the starting line and waiting for that green light, and then it's full steam ahead. So, and Adele is, and her producing partner, Naya, they're incredible. And
Yeah.
so I just kind of can't wait to see what comes next when they're, you know, let off the when the barn gates open, how far are they going to run? I guess is my question. So I'm excited, but so far we're just in the waiting game, which is part of why I got out of Hollywood and moved into books. I was tired of waiting.
Yeah, that kind of leads into my next thought or my next question. You were a screenwriter.
Mhm.
How how difficult was it to switch from screenwriting to writing a full-length novel?
I always kind of go back to this one anecdote, which is when I wrote my first draft of Follow Me. I sent it to my very good friend Alana and had her read it. And she wrote back, she goes, great, I love the story. This is so fun. And she goes, Hemingway's ghost is begging you for an adverb. Like, I have never given this note in my life to a novelist. It needs to be longer. And I thought, really? It's so long. And then when I gave it to my publisher and they said, oh, yeah, we want to publish this, we need you to add 5 chapters. I
Oh
thought, oh my
wow.
God, where? Um, so I think there was that gear of learning how to write in a way that gives detail. I'm used to screenwriting where it's like, unless it has to be raining, don't put it's raining in there because then they've got to figure out in the budget how to make it rain. Like, don't
Yeah.
put extras in there because they're going to have to feed those extras. And if we're on a remote location where the extras, like, I had that mindset still, and they were
I
like, it
got
can be anything. I was like, I'm going to set fire to so much stuff because I don't have to
you.
think about the budget. Um, so that was definitely a switch. I think one of the other things that I have to be wary of is I was so used to in screenwriting, you write from the point of view of the camera in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
The viewer sees what the camera sees, right?
Hmm.
And so there were ways that I would still kind of dip into that where I would kind of like nudge into somebody else's point of view, and my editor would go, "You can't do that. You got to stay with the person you're with." So that was something I've had to really be on top of, where it's not like she felt sad. It's like you have to say the main character looks and sees the other character looking sad. I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So it was just I was just rusty. I was really rusty writing in actual, prose style. But then once I got my feet under me, I just felt like, oh my gosh, this is so freeing. It's so fun.
Yeah.
I only have to think about what's on this page. I don't have to think about what it means for 200 crew members who are going to be on a night shoot for 4 months.
With this book, you have 6, 7 core characters, and they are so different. Each one brings something different, and each one is hiding something different. Also, um, how did you choose what each character brought to the table, so to speak?
I think what I really enjoy is when I'm kind of trying to sketch out my characters is almost in the same way as the villain is like, what's their point of view? What is the thing that they want? What are they doing to try to get it? What's in their way? Are they in their own way? And then when you have people in these close quarters, how are these goals either aligning or in conflict with each other?
Mhm.
And to me, I think like the setting of Pay to Stay was already so kind of heightened. It already gave so much of that locked roomness
Yeah.
that then to have the kind of interpersonal problems feel very relatable, right? Because as you said, like most people have not been to jail, so they don't really understand what that life is like, and good for them. But everyone can understand when you really want something for good reason and somebody else wants the opposite and for an irritatingly also good reason. And to me, that keeps, novels and thrillers, and I love to have lots of comedy and a little bit of gore. If I can keep the characters feeling really real,
Yeah.
that's what kind of allows me to have the plots spin out of control. And you feel the characters going, oh my God, this is spinning out of control. I just wanted this one thing.
Yeah.
And I think it allows the readers to build allegiances and empathies to characters who maybe in a short description they would think I have nothing in common with that person.
Mhm.
But, Aisha is a perfect example. We think she's this terrible person, and then we realize her dad is sick and she's just will do anything to care for him.
Yeah.
And a lot of people understand that. You have a loved one who you want to do everything for. Suddenly, a lot of things that weren't on the table a second ago are on the table. And I loved in this book being able to kind of set people up to think they knew who people were, who the
Mhm.
characters were. And then as the book progresses, flip the reader's perspective, play with those allegiances, play with the reader's biases, right? Like, why
Mhm.
did you think that was a good person? Because that's on you.
Yeah, exactly. And I had to look up how to pronounce her name, Aisha.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's Turkish.
Hmm.
But I was saying Asa and Ace and Ice and all of this. I said, well, I'm just going to look it up. I mean, there's only,
Yeah.
it took me a minute. And you like long chapters. Your chapters, they're very lengthy. Uh, do you set out to make the chapters really long? Is that your part of your process?
I guess I don't think about chapter length necessarily so much as I think what feels like a complete thought, what
Mhm.
feels like a complete set piece.
Gotcha.
And in this book, since I toggle between, first Bard's and then Cammy and Aisha's perspectives, I don't
Mhm.
want to kind of leave one of the characters in the middle of a moment, right?
Mhm.
And I think also coming from screenwriting, thinking about things in the sense of scenes or setups or whatever, like I want a chapter, even if it's long, to feel like, okay, we've reached a real pause point and it makes sense to shift as opposed to something that could maybe almost feel disjointed if it's like, well, wait, why are we, I don't, now I've forgotten what was happening because you left in the middle.
Which of the characters of the six ladies, which one was the funnest, I guess you could say, to write?
Oh, I mean, Janet's such a dingbat and
Yeah.
she talks and you're just looking at her like, lady, you are a nightmare. She was really fun, but I think also writing Cami because the way that to get her interior experience of knowing what she's presenting, but then actually hearing what's happening, behind the facade, that was really fun
Yeah.
to play with.
Yeah. And you throw a nun in there. You throw a nun in prison right in the middle of it.
Mhm.
That to me, that was just fun. And then you have the lizard,
Nacho,
the
Nacho the
nacho.
iguana. Hmm.
Yeah, that was fun. That everybody made fun of Nacho. Which one did you find challenging? Which character could you have the hardest time relating to, I guess you could say.
I think I had the hardest time relating to Dee Dee because she's a person who by her own design does not want to have depth in her life. She likes the surface. She's not trying to go further than that. And she's very, very selfish. And I think she was hard for me to write because how do you make that character not feel repetitive or boring? How do you give them interesting new things to do? And so all the times that, Aisha's just like, I hate her. That was me being like, Dee Dee, shut up. I know I got you in this chapter, but you're God, you only care about yourself. That was my own letting off steam via a character and another character.
Which what did you like writing best? You've gotten your two novels under your belt now. The Wide Open Spaces or the Confined Space? Which of those did you like the best?
The confined space was such a pain,
Yeah.
but at the same time, I think it gave me so much to dig into in terms of the characters, and it felt really fun to be able to like ratchet up the tension in a
Mhm.
way that was harder in my first book because wide open spaces and so many suspects, and we just kind of have one character on her own who doesn't really have somebody to kind of bounce ideas off of in the same way. And so I think I had more fun on this book. It was harder, but it was more fun to feel like, oh, I'm going to make everything go bad now. I'm going to make everything go haywire. They just found a place where they think they're coasting, and now I'm going to come in and mess it all
That's
up
right.
for them.
And throw in a torrential rainstorm in the middle of it, that always makes things work better,
Yeah. Adds to the claustrophobia.
That's right. What are you working on now? What's coming next?
Well, I am still kind of poking around the screenwriting world, and so I've been writing some short stories to
Mhm.
see if we could attach a studio. So that's kind of what's been bouncing around. But for the most part, even as I write these short stories, I'm looking at my agent going, can we take this to a publisher now? Can we take this shorts? Now that I've gotten the bug of being able to write as much as I want, it's not that hard to make this into a book. I
Yeah.
really like this concept. So I did a kind of a dystopian kind of near future thing that is very kind of human scaled. It's kind of in the vein of like Never Let Me Go or Children of Men. It's
Hmm.
not
Okay.
Star Trek. It's kind of much more grounded.
Yeah.
And then I just wrote this totally unhinged short story that has a similar thing of like lots of secrets, people in close quarters, lots of conflicting allegiances. And if no one wants to make that into a TV show, hopefully I can get it on bookshelves in the next year or two because
Okay.
it's real messy. It's
Yeah.
very soapy and messy, but fun.
Those are fun books, the soapy books. You can just,
Mhm.
read them in a couple of sittings. Uh, do you have a author or a book that you think is underrated that does not get the praise that it needs?
I mean, I am such a devotee of P.D. James, and
Mhm.
the fact that Children of Men was kind of her one-off novel that was so different from like her Dalgleish series and stuff. I think that book's so incredible, and it's so quiet and haunting. And I know that it was very popular when it came out, and the movie was successful, but I I'm shocked that it's not a book that like everyone on the planet has read because I
Yeah.
find it's a book that like hooks into your sternum and doesn't let go. So I would highly recommend anybody check that out for just a totally different experience.
If you were able to talk to any writer, a living or dead, who would it be?
Hmm.
If you could
That's
pick their
hard.
brain.
That's hard. I mean, who doesn't want to know where Agatha Christie disappeared to for those 13 days that she just vanished? That would be
No.
fun. I want to know that secret. Um, I would love to talk to PD James about why didn't she go back and write more books like Children of Men? Like, where did that book come from for her? It felt like something that existed whole cloth and just like beamed into her brain and came out whole. And I would really love to know what it felt like to write that book. Because it was one that just really like it hit me right in the center when I read it first when I was like a teenager, and it's never let go of me. So I would either solve that Agatha Christie mystery or I would pick PD James's brain about her process because I think her books are so wonderful and studied and the characters and all of it. I imitate her as much as I possibly can while having a completely different tone in my books.
When you're writing, are you a plotter or a pantser? I mean, I'm sure with you being a screenwriter, the plot has to be kind of outlined. How do you
Mhm.
approach writing a 80,000, 90,000 word novel?
I'm still a plotter because I have two little kids. So I don't have like a cabin in the woods and hours of silence to just kind of write 10,000 words in the wrong direction. Um, Payback, my first book, I wrote so much of that book in my car while a child like napped in a car
Yeah.
seat behind me. Um, and then Payback, I shattered my ankle Christmas morning
Oh
of
no.
2024 and did not walk for like 4 months.
Oh wow.
So this book I wrote sitting in the middle of my living room with my two children, like literally climbing on top of me, and I'm typing, and you can't open this banana, and like I can't reach the granola bars, and I'm like, well, I can't either. And so I need to have it plotted so that if I have 20 minutes, I can get 20 minutes worth of work done and
I
not 10
got you.
minutes of what am I doing? Where am I
Yeah.
going?
I
Um,
understand.
mhm.
With this book, are you going to be doing any signings? Are you going to like a tour or anything like that?
Yeah, so I have a book launch and signing coming up at Bookworks on Rio Grande Boulevard here in New Mexico
Okay.
on the 5th. And I will be at Books on the Bosque, also here in New Mexico on the 9th. And then if people want to know more, they should follow my Instagram at Elizabeth Rose Quinn author, because anything I'm doing, I'll be putting up there. I'm not so good about updating my website because it just is like, oh God, why? One more task. But
Yeah, I know. I was when I was diving into who you were, and I mean I knew who you were, but when I went to try to find out to
you're gonna
ask
tell on me.
questions, I went to your website. I was like, oh, this hasn't been updated in a year. I was like, so
Don't tell on me, Scott. Don't do it.
it makes my job harder, but it was fine. There's always the internet, and there's plenty of stuff out there about everybody. If just signed copies, will they be at the launch? Is that where people can order those?
Yeah.
All right, I
Yeah,
will.
and people have called in to like Books of the Bosque and say, I want a signed copy, and they call me and I go down there and sign it with a little inscription and people come pick it up. So if you want to reach out to me, if you DM me and want to email or mail me your book, I will sign it for you. I got no
Okay,
problem with that.
awesome,
I'm
awesome,
available.
good
I'm
deal.
grateful to anybody who wants to read. And so if a signature makes you happy, I would give me 10, I'll sign the phone book. I don't care. Um,
Were you at BocerCon last year in New Orleans?
yes.
Okay,
Yes.
I was there. I don't guess we crossed paths. There were so many people and so much.
Mhm.
That's my first BocerCon, and wow, it was that it's just amazing the number of people and the authors and how accessible they are, and everybody's so nice and so friendly, and it was great. Is there anything that I didn't ask that you want to talk about?
I
I
can't
always
think of
want
anything.
to. Okay.
Those were good questions. I liked those
I have
questions.
I try. I like to throw a curve, but I don't want to be. I'm not like Barbara Walters or anything over here, but I like to make the not uncomfortable. I want to make you think like who is an underrated author. A lot of people, you'd be surprised. I mean, and the question about who would you talk to, dead or alive. I had one person, she wanted to talk about or Poe. She's from Baltimore, and she's like, I want to find out why he died on the streets. That's who I want to talk to. And it's
Hmm.
always interesting to find out what people what people are interested in, and what goes into their books and their minds and that. So,
Yeah, I mean, if we're doing a vengeance seance, I want to talk to T.S. Eliot and yell at him for committing his first wife to an asylum. I want to take him to the woodshed over that. So we
yeah.
if we're talking to people just because we want to yell at them, I got a long list.
Oh, well, it was so fun talking to you. Thank you for joining me. This was fun. I wish you a lot of luck. I hope you sell a lot of books, and hopefully we'll be talking again in about a year when you have your next one out.
I would love that. Thank you so much for having me, Scott.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. You have a good one.
Okay, take care. Bye.
Bye.